proposed paint, a lot of neutral colors, lighter colors. Or any specialized finishes are going to be very neutral tones. This is just showing you some of the proposed patterns for those areas. For the first floor, those circulation spaces or high traffic areas, and we are also including the cafeteria just because it is connected to those high traffic areas, so we'll be going around that as well. And then for the second floor, just very similar patterns, trying to continue that language on both floors. When you look at the exterior and interior signage, this is really where we're gonna focus our efforts on that rebranding and updating to your newer standards as well, trying to create equity with some of the other campuses. So definitely we'll be addressing the sign on the main entry, getting that updated. As well as the interior graphics, and this starts to show you some of the things that we talked about. So we'll have your standard panel signage throughout the building. Thank you. So we'll be replacing the panel signage throughout the building to support just your newer standards, as well as continuing the language of some of that vinyl work that has already happened in some of the athletic areas. And then again, it shows you those banners that we're proposing to cut in the corridors to help support that branding, as well as just vinyls in some of the existing spaces or existing storefront windows. We also talked about an opportunity to bring the existing marquee and creating a space. Again, bringing the history and being respectful of the history, so we're proposing to bring some of that into the lobby, potentially just again, making sure we are respectful of the history of the junior high school. And then in general, we are proposing the same schedule. There is a potential to do work early on building 500 to support some of the conversion, but this has been in coordination with the campus and making sure that we are mindful of their operations. And if you all remember, this work is happening concurrently with the chiller replacement, so we're having those coordinated, so those are happening at the same time to minimize just the impact on the campus and the operations. I'll open it for any questions.
Can you speak a little bit to the alternate related to a secure vestibule?
Sure. We are currently looking at providing an addendum or an alternate into our drawings before it goes out to bid to incorporate a security vestibule into this campus. We're doing studies of potentially doing it within the administration suite to minimize the change in the current operations and some of the way the building is already set up. We know you have already access control in that door leading into the admin entrance as well as into the campus. So we're looking at options to study that and an opportunity to incorporate and minimize the cost, but still being impactful and being able to provide that for this campus as well.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on the presentation? Okay, so I'm looking at our board action sheet. Sorry, my computer's not
We good?
Okay, so the administrative recommendation is that the board approve the 100% construction documents for the junior high school refresh, remodel, and expansion as presented by O'Connell Robertson Architects. and further authorize the superintendent to commence the procurement of construction services for the project. So do I hear a motion on that?
Yeah, I move to approve the 100% construction documents for the junior high school refresh, remodel, and expansion as presented by O'Connor Robertson Architects, and further to authorize the superintendent to commence the procurement of construction services for this project.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Joel and second by Dan. Any further questions or discussion? And we'll take a vote. All those in favor? That motion is going to carry 7-0.
Six.
Oh, sorry, Donna's not here. 6-0. Thank you for counting for me. No, I'm going to get mine working. Okay, just a second. Thank you guys for being here and sharing that presentation with us. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item B under action items, SB 401, the homeschool participation in UIL activities. I'm gonna, until I get this up. No problem.
Okay, board members, this is an item we have discussed previously, and so administration is coming to you now for a vote on whether or not homeschool participants would be allowed to participate in UIL activities in Navarro ISD. This is something that previously was a more passive approach by the legislation and UIL, but now we have to take an active stance, and that has to be reported to UIL. So we're coming to you asking for action and looking for a vote tonight.
Does anyone have any comments or questions they want to contribute to the discussion? I just want to state that the first time that this came before the board, it could be passive, but we did take the position that we were going to go ahead and have a resolution that we weren't going to open up participation or UIL activities for the district's homeschool students. So at the time, we really didn't have to declare one way or the other, but we said that we wanted to make that clear, and now we're being required to do that. So that's what we're here for this. Think about. Thank you. Pass that on to you. It's my own laptop. That's the problem now. Okay, I'll show you yours. Here. Yeah, if you don't mind. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's letting me touch it, but it's not doing what I want it to do. Okay, so the administrative recommendation is that the school district board of trustees adopts a policy declining to grant non-enrolled students or homeschool students the opportunity to participate in UIL activities. We must adopt a policy by September 1st, 2025 in order to opt out. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the changes to policy FF 141 FD local declining to grant non-enrolled students the opportunity to participate in university interscholastic league activities.
I'll second.
Okay, motion was made by Dr. Gosh and second by Joel. Any further discussion? Okay, then we'll take a vote on that. All those in favor? That motion is also going to pass 6-0. Okay, we're going to move into action item C, policy update FM local student activities and extracurricular absences. This is a conversation that we've had before, and we're just kind of shoring up that conversation and taking action on that this evening.
Board members, if you don't have any questions, we would just ask that you go ahead and take a vote on this. This is removing the limit on the absences related to extracurriculars and solely basing that eligibility on the no pass, no play rule. We did include some additional information that was requested, including ag absences, which are some of the highest absences that we have for extracurricular activities. So unless you have any further questions, we would ask for that vote.
I'm sorry, you guys, technology is not working with me tonight. It's coming. Thank you. Okay, the administrative recommendation is that the Board of Trustees reviews the policy FM local to make the recommendation on any necessary changes based on the legislation. Has the input, this is the wrong one. Yeah,
Let
let's,
me just make a motion.
yes, let's do it. Okay, do I hear a motion on that?
I move to approve the proposed changes to policy FM local to include the new language that the district shall not limit the number of absences for post-district state or other competition.
Second that.
Okay, the motion was made by Dr. Gosh and second by Clint. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? That motion is also gonna pass 6-0. Okay, action item D is gonna be HB 1481, personal communication devices at school.
Board members, part of the legislative rulings for the 89th legislature was a bill including communication devices on campuses. This is a required state change. This is not initiated by the district. So we wanted to be clear on that. This is House Bill 1481, and we have outlined the recommendations of the school district, which include an alignment with what we are currently doing, which is that students are not allowed to use their phones during the school day. They are not allowed to utilize them during lunch or passing periods. So this would echo the law. The clarifying pieces are that we have a policy that you would adopt to either not allow them to be on the premises, which we are not recommending. We are actually recommending that you, and this is your option, allow for those to be at the campus, but they would have to be secure, and our secure would be in a bag or a backpack during the day. This, we believe, addresses some of the concerns of parents that during an emergency situation, students would still be allowed to access their devices. And we do believe that is critical, not only in the case of something that would be catastrophic, but in the case of potentially needing to report a safety incident, a bullying incident, or the need to speak to a suicide prevention hotline. Again, in those cases, students would be talked to about why they're accessing their phone for that, and then conversations again with counseling and parents. One of the things that I think is very critical to emphasize as a concern, parents have said, my child uses their device for medical purposes, whether that's to check a Dexcom, if I have a blood sugar issue, those are all exempt issues, so students would be allowed with a medical doctor stating that that's something they need to use it for, as well as if there's an IEP need or 504 need for that student to be accessing that particular device. And so that is the proposed change that we bring to you. You can see there not only the House bill, but also the FNCE local, which we are requesting those adjustments. I also included our communication with families and our regulations. I know one of the things that has come up is that the law actually struck the payment option for when you confiscate a student's phone, that they would have to pay funds to receive that back. That was something that the legislature struck, and our attorneys have pointed out we needed to make sure it was not part of our returning the phone policy. And so we have addressed that as more of a discipline approach to correcting those who bring their phone. Again, conversations with parents and having the understanding of why that student continues to access that phone. And whether that's behavior contract or having a conversation about maybe for this particular student, they need to keep the phone at home. We of course will be emphasizing that we need to have accurate information about how we contact parents, and then having that access for students, and that students actually know phone numbers, because if they're anything like me, I don't remember numbers the way I used to. The cell phone has made us a little bit complacent with that. But being able to know that they have access to go to the office and make a phone call if necessary, and if parents need to reach their student. I think some of us in this room may remember watching that little 8 come with the little pass, and you thought, I hope this is from my mom saying I'm going to get out of school early, and it was no, make sure you ride the bus today, right? But we were able to communicate with students prior to cell phones, and we will do the same with this as well. But encouraging our families that please don't try to reach your child via the cell phone. That is causing them to have to violate the law. And so we'll have that access through the office. We do have an interest in this policy, as you can imagine, and so Seguin Gazette has already set up a meeting with me at 8 o'clock in the morning to hear what we'll be doing, and they'll be speaking out about what people are doing in the area, but also just communicating with parents early and often. I think some of the changes to note that we haven't enforced would be that smart watch or smart device, which communicates, the Bluetooth capable earbuds, whether it may be Meta glasses. We know those are like any technology, what starts out being expensive very quickly becomes affordable, and as it evolves. So making sure that any communication device, they actually write in the law pagers, so making sure pagers or radio devices are also not accessible to students. So any questions you may have, but we would be asking for a vote tonight, just based on wanting to make sure we're able to have that as our code of conduct, which later you'll be looking at ratifying, as well as making sure the information gets out early enough for parents. I know I've already had some reach out and say, hey, for my kid's birthday, I was gonna give them a smart watch. And I said, hey, maybe an old-fashioned watch might work better, because they won't be able to wear it during the school day. So just something to consider as you guys look through that policy and ask us any questions you may have.
Are there any conversations, or what are the conversations about the consequences for violations that you guys have already started having?
So you can see on the attachment, the administrative regulation, which addresses the consequences. All of the consequences involve the confiscation of the device, and that the parent will have to come up and retrieve the device the next day. We do have specific times in which they could retrieve the device, as well as whether it's a consequence of an ISS or multiple ISS as we continue on the offenses, as well as a behavior contract to try to address the behavior of repeatedly using that phone.
Thank you. I just wanted to make that part of the conversation because I know that this is going to be a hotly contested topic. Are there any other comments or questions or concerns?
I know one of the pieces of the legislation says that after then, that you are able to keep the phone after 90 days, and if the parent doesn't pick it up, the district has to opt to either that we will dispose of it with notice or not. Are we going to dispose of the phones if parents don't pick up within the 90 days?
Yes, that is written in the policy that we would communicate to the parents that you need to come pick it up. If they do not, we would be disposing of it. We do still have to give them the written notice, but if they do not come to collect it, we can dispose of it as we choose.
Anything else? Okay, if there's nothing else, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve the policy changes to FNCE local to address the HB 1481 as presented. I'll second.
Okay, the motion was made by Clint and second by Dan. Any other discussion? All those in favor? That motion's gonna carry 6-0. And we're gonna move on to action item E, HB6, parental involvement in disciplinary placement. You have that conversation.
Yes, board members, what I shared with you is also part of our code of conduct, which expedites this. I did want to highlight that the board policy that you have, also the law itself allows for us to put out a code of conduct or a handbook and later adopt policy. So if there's ever heartburn about, hey, we need to talk about this a little bit more, essentially what your board policy says is that whatever was last adopted trumps. So if the handbook goes out and you later adopt a policy that contradicts the handbook, your policy is what has to be followed. So we of course would want to communicate out to parents that this policy has changed, but just wanted to make sure you felt comfortable. It always feels very rushed following a legislative session as we have to get out these documents for registration. Specifically this year, when we're talking about over 100 bills that were passed that relate to educational changes. So this particular item of parental involvement is not a shall for the board. It does not say that you shall adopt a policy for parental involvement in disciplinary placement. It says you may adopt. But because that is part of our code of conduct where it says if your child is sent to the discipline center, the alternative placement, we need to be able to put in there that yes, this policy does exist, that parents will be involved in this manner, or no, this is not a policy. The biggest difference that I see in the language of this is that we would be asking parents to come in and an agreement would be made with the parent and the child that if both of you complete these things, we would be looking at a potential reduction in your time in the placement. That is still subject to the principal saying, I agree with that reduction. I am not recommending that, administration is not recommending that we adopt a policy. Currently, under your discipline procedures for DAEP, we have an intake meeting where we speak with parents, we explain this is the process, this is when your child needs to report, this is what they need to wear, this is what they'll be doing, this is how they'll receive instruction. We have a review period already where we can look at it every 10 days and say, based on good behavior, based on following the rules, based on the offense that was committed, we are looking at reducing that time. And it's not tied to a joint system with the parent. I have some concerns about that related to parent involvement and holding that parent, depending on their social and economic status. That may be very difficult for a parent to participate with, but they are fully involved in the process and have opportunity not only to hear about the process, but they actually sign a document saying they understand that this is the process and they have a voice with the administrator to talk through that. So I don't necessarily think it is something that the board needs to adopt at this time. Again, at any point in time, the board could say, we want to consider adopting that, and we would be able to bring that back to you, and you would be able to vote and adopt it. But at this time, we don't see it as something that is necessary. So any questions you have?
I have several questions. So I think my first question is, this is not a shall, this is a may.
Yes.
And what I hear you say is that we don't really need this, we don't already do it, it's not already in our handbook. So I'm a little bit confused why we're actually voting on it if it's not already part of our process and we're not required to do it. I also hear you say that our parents are already involved in the process. But in that same sentence, I hear you say, we explain the process to the parent and we allow the parent to say they understand the process. That's not truly involving the parent. So I have a concern about the way that sounds, in terms of involving the parent in that process versus just telling the parent, because by the time we bring the parent in for those types of things, the decision has been made as to what that looks like, and the parent doesn't really have much say in that. It's either accept it or don't, because truthfully, in this type of disciplinary placement, even if I withdraw my child from the school system, if I go somewhere else, the child still has to serve. So that's not really parent involvement as I read how this piece of legislation is there. So I'm not real clear on why we need to act or do anything with this, as it's not currently part of the process, and you're saying we don't need to adopt it and it's not part of the process. And then lastly, my other question really is kind of a bigger ask, and it has to do with also the timing of why we're doing this now. So a huge piece of the last legislation has to do with parent involvement. And there is a big component of that where TEA is supposed to really develop the policies for what that looks like. And that includes a lot of different aspects, everything from running behavioral assessments on students to allowing students to have counseling services to involving parents in disciplinary placement. And so my concern is whether or not we are preempting any of the guidance by even bringing this now, and what you have been told by the attorneys in terms of that, because I have some concerns that to say we're involving parents, we're not really involving parents, we're simply stating what it is, because the school systems have always been in loco parentis, basically, and this is part of House Bill 6 and part of the parent involvement pieces, even when it comes to grievances and so on, that is trying to give more control back to parents about, you know, how things are going and how far that goes. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm not trying to make a decision on this. I just simply have those kind of questions about this and the timing of it all.
And I'd be happy to answer that. So yes, most of the laws that have anything to do with a change like this state that TEA will be charged with giving us the guidelines and the guidance. What we've been told by TEA is that won't be happening until after October. So when we receive from Walsh Gallegos, who gives us our code of conduct, or TASB, who's giving us the handbook, they highlight in there where they're asking you to insert this new portion. And again, I don't feel comfortable saying, let's go ahead and put it in, or let's not put it in without bringing it to the board. So it has been highlighted for us to add in the code of conduct if the board is choosing to adopt a policy. If the board is not, we would leave it out as we have previously because it wasn't a law. So what I felt comfortable doing tonight was bringing it to you, and if y'all felt strongly that I do think that's something we need to go ahead and indicate that we're gonna adopt a policy, and we are gonna adopt a policy, and let's get that language and let's go forward, then we would go ahead and check the box that we are gonna have that parental involvement piece, so that it would be there in the code of conduct. Again, if we wanna delay and revisit this later, again, we would leave it out of the code of conduct because you don't have it now, but we would say there's a potential policy adopted later. Parents, we've changed this because policy has changed. Policy change was the latest, and so therefore it trumps the code of conduct that was given to you at the beginning of the year. And again, this is that tripping point of new legislation when TEA is not ready to respond and boards are being asked to give authority on a code of conduct before any guidance has been given out. So it's a tricky, slippery slope, but I would have felt uncomfortable putting a code of conduct in front of you without letting you guys know that this is a May
policy, meaning you can choose to have one or not. And again, happy to bring it back when we have some guidance from TEA, if that is something that we're interested in. But for now, that would mean not placing it in the code of conduct because we haven't made a decision. If you felt strongly that no, we understand we have a process in place now where parents are notified, and I think to your point, Dr. Gosh, we can talk about that involvement piece, and we're gonna need to understand what that guidance really is. But right now, the involvement is that a parent is contacted and walked through the process of DAEP. But how much negotiation we're allowing parents to have about, well, I think it should be this long, or I think if I do this or my child does this, it should be considered to be reduced. No, that's not something that's happening in what we're doing right now is the process, but there is a review to already reduce if that is the choice of the administrator after they look at what the behavior has been in DAEP. So that really explains why we brought it to you, and certainly as we see TEA develop the guidance, be happy to bring that back to you guys.
So what we have in place now is essentially parental awareness. They're not necessarily involved in the decision making, but they're made aware, and that there's also documentation that they have to participate in, saying that they're aware that this was the policy, this was the infraction, and this is the consequence.
Yes.
That's what we have in place right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that being said, because that is in place and that is part of our code of conduct, are we comfortable moving forward with essentially a negative in the we're not going to adopt, or do we want to table? We'll need a, because we can always just postpone. We don't have
What we're doing right now works, right? And we're waiting on TEA guidance
Correct.
ultimately. And
Correct.
what we're doing right now is working. Ultimately, from each campus level, I'm asking.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So, I mean, if it's working right now, and we are awaiting more guidance, I'm not opposed to waiting for a little bit.
I'm sure it's working, of course, it's subjective.
Yeah,
Correct.
sure, fair enough. Been on the wrong side of that.
Yes, correct.
And I definitely think postponing, if there's more clarification coming,
Yes.
it seems like postponing would be a good idea.
And so it's not gonna put our students or our staff in any different of a position if we don't take action on it tonight. We're
That
still
is
gonna
correct.
follow through with what we have.
That's correct. We're just getting the approval from you to continue as we have in our code of conduct until we have some further guidance to bring back to you.
Until we have, I would feel better about that until we have the further guidance, because once we vote to say no parental involvement, I understand it's not that we can't undo that.
Correct.
But at the same time,
It makes a
seems
statement.
cart before horse to me a little bit. That's just my personal opinion
Well, and
about it.
I also don't wanna create any confusion
Correct.
for our parents that may end up having to deal with this situation. I mean, we all hope that that's not ever a thing, but it comes up, so. But I'll need to hear a motion on what you guys want to do with this.
I move to postpone the recommendation of administration to adopt a policy do not adopt, let me start over. I move to postpone the recommendation of administration to not adopt a policy for parental involvement in school disciplinary placement as outlined in section 7, chapter A, chapter 37, education code, section 37.0014 at this time.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion was made by Dr. Gosh and second by Becky. Any other discussion? All those in favor of postponing? And that postponement motion is gonna carry 6-0. Okay, we are gonna move into action item F, board nominations of SHAC committee members.
Board members, this is fairly simple. We just need to follow the code, which allows for the board to make nominations for the SHAC. We have posted a Google Doc for folks in the community to join the SHAC, so we will take those recommendations and contact those folks, but
This is your opportunity to nominate 5 or more folks if you have them, and we just wanted to give that opportunity so that we can take those names down and contact them.
So when we make this nomination or recommendation, do we need to name the parents in that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm trying to pull up the Google Doc.
so we don't have any currently. The Google Doc I'd shared previously in, the Friday memo. So you can make a nomination tonight if you know someone. Generally, one of the 5 that you nominate would be our chair or a co-chair. It's generally a parent. We have had some consistent parents that do attend that I know would like to continue, but maybe there's someone that's talking with you already about serving on a district committee. We meet quarterly. There's just 4 meetings. They're an hour, 5 to 6. We try to work around the parents, or the community members' schedule. But we really are trying to deepen the roots of this committee. They have a lot of important decision-making, especially with all the new legislation. This will be an important year to have. There's mental health training, there's lots of pieces that came out of the legislative session.
I think we have the nominations.
Okay.
If y'all wanna,
I can't get their names at, what,
Can't
how do
get
you
the
want
list of the
yeah.
names.
I was about to say,
The Google Doc is not opening.
can you pull up those and read out those names, and those will be the nominations?
Doesn't show, the only person that has a response waiting is Mr. Frederick. It doesn't
Well,
show.
I just clicked on it 'cause I thought
No,
that's
this
where
was
the nominations were.
this was the original doc of the people that had said they would be interested. The board is going to support those.
Did we ever get 5? Cause we had 4, right?
No, she didn't have to.
We had
I clicked
4 the
on it,
last
see if
time
that's
I
what the
checked.
nominations were, 'cause I couldn't find it. And it wasn't, it
Does
was
it-
permission.
Do any of the trustees have anyone they would like to nominate? Just because we nominate them doesn't mean they're going to accept, by the way. It's just a nomination, it's a formality.
So you wanna just read those?
Just the names on the.
Chelsea provided it, so we'll pull that up.
I've got it right here.
And this was just from the Google Doc that went out to the general public. But if you're in support of those, we can say those names as well to help support the nomination.
We have Mr. Chris Castro, Janet Moreno, Christine McNeil, Carlette Drawback, but she's an employee,
So
and.
is Christine.
Okay, sorry, it said parent. And that was it, the others are for DEIC.
Has anybody reached out, has Jessica Warren reached out at all about that? She's,
Okay, we can add that as a nomination, thank you.
I'm not saying she wants to.
No, we understand, this is just you guys
But
throwing out names.
she's a
Did you
health
say
person.
Warren or Warner?
Warren.
Warren.
And if you know any health professionals, anyone that's currently in the medical field, a nurse, someone who works in trauma centers, someone who works at a clinic, they would be exceptional for this. We had at one point a nurse lead 5 years ago, and she was wonderful. She just didn't get a lot of support from the community for her meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, does someone want to make the motion to nominate these 5 people?
Just for point of clarification, we're not listed on that one, so I just wanna make sure it's all copacetic, we can do what we're supposed to, on that action
Yeah.
sheet, Becky and I are.
You can.
It's
I don't
okay.
know
I
why
don't-
that
I don't
you're
know-
not listed, I
I don't know the rules of all
apologize.
that
The
sort of stuff,
copy
so.
paste fails.
Okay, I just wanna make sure it's all
Yes,
copacetic.
yes, Ruth will write your names in.
Okay, I didn't know.
It's for the
I was
convenience
more
of the
worried about
secretary. You're
The
good,
assistant secretary's first time out, so.
you got it.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead, and move to nominate Chris Castro, Janet Moreno, Kristen McNeil, Christine McNeil, Charlotte Drawback, and Jessica Warren to the District SHAC Committee.
I'll second.
All right, the motion was made by me and seconded by Joel. Any other discussion? All those in favor of those nominations? And that motion is going to pass 6-0. And we will move on to action item G, consider and possibly approve the possible approval of stipend recommendations for the 25-26 school year. And the presentation on that information will be by Mr. Newhock and Dr. Epley.
Good evening. Before you this evening, this is our recommendation for stipend adjustments for the coming school year. As part of the compensation task force, they requested in our meetings that we look at those stipends and see where they stand in terms of our market. So that's what instigated part of the beginning of this. As we move forward, we contacted TASB, who has done a study such as this in the past for us, but it's been quite a number of years before that study was done. The results of that study showed that they came up with an estimated adjustment for about approximately $104,000 for what they thought. We did have some questions regarding some of the things that they where they compared us to certain districts. It was districts we had never been compared to before, and we thought was a little off. In addition, there were some items that weren't put, we had stipends set up that they had never seen before and were not used by other districts, and they just threw in a number for $500. So we did our own analysis to kind of compare where we were paying other stipends and how much that stipend should be compared to where we were paying for certain other stipends in the district. So after going through that, what we have come to is instead of doing that full $104,000, we're asking that we move gradually into that. We'll do half this year and then reevaluate as we go into next year, and then potentially do the other half next year. Are there any questions?
And when you say half, so half distributed equally across?
We try to bring like on the athletics, we tried to go halfway on what had put. Some of the others we took to where we thought they should be based on the numbers, and we tried to kind of allocate it as best as we could. But it's not like every person got 50% of what they thought. So we tried to put people where they could, but it's not, I will say that, and we're not hearing from people that they're not going to take a job because of our stipends. So it's not, we don't think it's something that's so urgent that we have to jump and move everybody up as fast as possible. But we tried to allocate it as best as we could.
I think it's important to note as well that I think certainly seeing where we stand in the market is helpful for us to make decisions about where adjustments need to be made. But the bigger part, I think, of this study and the benefits of what we did was we literally wrote job descriptions for each of these stipends. And that was not something that previously was consistent across the board. And so when we presented to TASB for the review, we actually met with the supervisor to say, what are you asking this person to do? And let's write it out. So now, in addition to feeling like we were able to communicate exactly what we wanted that person to be able to achieve and see, are we in the realm of market for what we're asking them to do, we actually are able to go back to that person and confirm that they are doing this task and truly earning that stipend. Because I think, in the industry, we know stipends are not a, hour for hour payment for what you're doing, not even remotely close. It is a thank you for that extra time that you're putting in for the job. But specifically, we wanted to make sure people actually understood what the requirements of that particular stipend were. So I think it was a positive in that realm. But yes, traditionally, when you get a recommendation like this from an HR standpoint, you do not have the funds to bring everybody up to the recommendation. So there's usually a phased-in approach. In some districts, we're going to take all sports this year, we're gonna take spring sports next year, or we're going to take academic stipends this year and then start working on athletic stipends the following year. The approach we took was to say, if you were already over the market value, we're not touching you, nobody's getting a cut. If you were well under, we're definitely going to make a move for you. But trying to give everyone some sort of bump along that scale that needed to move up, as well as recognize our new stipends for some of the new programming that we have. And then from that point, make a plan to phase in next year and look at that to bring everybody back up. But that way it's not this universal 22%, it's more in line with what we did with our general salaries in bringing that up.
Who on the board was on the compensation task force? Was there a lot of conversation about stipends during the meeting?
There was a decent amount. I wouldn't say it was like focused on at all, but it was always brought up.
Does this kind of change, what do you think about this change considering the conversation?
It's gonna be noticeable, people are gonna see it, it's not something that's gonna go unnoticed, like behind the scenes, and people are gonna, oh, this didn't happen, especially, obviously, staff. I don't think it's gonna be something seen in the public by any means, but it's just gonna be staff attention to it.
And the 50,000 was presented in the budget originally, like that amount was set aside for that. People knew that they would probably get an additional 50,000 added to it. It's been based on the study. So.
But to your point though, I do remember having a conversation in here a couple months ago about how people had, I think when we were still in the other building, was that there were some classroom teachers that were concerned with the amount of stipends they were getting to do their little bits. And so I guess that's where I look at this, and I look, and nobody can argue that I don't like my athletics. But I feel like, there's a lot more on the athletic side than there is on the academic side. And, I think some of those teachers put in just as much time, especially having to be in a classroom for more classes than a coach does. And so, I don't know, I think it's, I know y'all did a lot of work, and I'm not discounting that, and I appreciate it. I'm just saying, well, from what I hear from some of those teachers, a $25 increase, not a lot. And when we look at the budget, over the next 5 years, off of both models, we have room for, I don't know,
From my perspective, is what we're looking at is, we're trying to keep the percentages of the raise the same. If you were to do a 20 or 30% stipend raise versus, you can't do a 20 or 30% raise in pay and salary.
correct.
So we're just trying to keep it even. That was from my perspective.
Sure.
Trying to keep it, okay, if we're doing 10% here, we do 10% there.
But it's not evenly distributed, so
Yeah.
the recommendations that we see, it's not like, okay, we're gonna put half of the dollars toward these recommendations, so like it says that it's going up 1,000, it's going up 500. He's saying that that's not how it's been designed. The
Yeah,
total is still
Athletics,
50,000.
it says it is. The athletic is half of what it's supposed to be.
Correct.
So I would clarify, I would say something different, because what a stipend study is doing is not recommending a raise. So I would caution in using the term,
Right.
this is a raise, it's not a raise. What this report is recommending is that our stipends be market competitive with all of those districts around. So hearing you say, because I'm looking at the list of the districts and I'm like, these are all the districts in our immediate area that we would be competing for teachers, for whatever, right? So yes, some of the schools in that list are larger, but there's quite a few of them that are within our ballpark in terms of the numbers of either students or FTEs that are there, or even size of district. And it's still that marketable area. So if we're looking at this, one thing to consider also is that with each year, those stipends within the market change. So if you're working to level out, it was my understanding we gave the raise, which we did, give an additional raise to bring everybody up to market so that we could be market competitive. But now we're saying we don't need to do that on the stipend side. We need to phase that in on the stipend side. The other concern I have, and I will echo the piece about the academics, when I look at the report, all of our academic stipends are below, all of them. Some of our athletic stipends are above. I totally agree with the concept of we are not in a financial situation where we need to take money away from people per se. But one thing about stipends is stipends are not considered part of your regular salary. So it doesn't contribute to your retirement, it doesn't contribute to that, and it is one area that if we ever needed to, that we can just decide to arbitrarily reduce it or raise it. So I guess to me, the real question is, and I totally get, people are not saying I'm not gonna sign up to work for Navarro because your stipend is too low, I get that. I think to me, the real question is, are we wanting it to be in the same ballpark and competitive with everybody in our region and everybody around us, or are we okay doing our own thing on one half of our salary schedule and not on the other? I think is where I look at it, because I don't look at this is a leveling, not an increase. And it says, I know it says on the board sheet a 22% increase. This would be the same thing if we did a salary leveling across the board. TASB would make the same kind of recommendations, and they would say XYZ position is paid this much below market value. If we were to raise that to market value, that wouldn't be a raise in salary, it would just simply be making it market competitive, which if I understand this report right, that is exactly what TASB is recommending. And I don't know what the cost of their study was, in comparison, but I do want to be cognizant of the fact that the people that are supposed to be the experts in this are making a recommendation. And how, and what we choose to do with it obviously is up to us. But they do have different levels of recommendations in there as far as what they're recommending, and from what I'm hearing, we're not really going with anything that they're recommending.
I definitely think we are going with what they're recommending on where we were already at market. Again, I think what's been echoed is what was said at compensation task force is we are allotting $50,000 for these changes, and that has been echoed throughout everything you've received in the budget. So again, we've given you, if you as a board choose to go whole hog and take their recommendation and take it all the way to what they recommended, we're open to that. Paul is absolutely here to talk through what that does to the budget. If that's what you want to do. What I would tell you is, as we have done our research, and I appreciate TASB, we went back and forth with this evaluator. We were not pleased 100% with the approach that they took. It's very disheartening for me that anything that they don't collect data on, they just write, it's $500. Even when we, again, have given an outlined job description, that to me is not due diligence. You can say we don't collect data on this, but based on your job description and the amount of contests the kids have to go to, or the time that they would put into this is what we would recommend. So there were some concerns about that data coming back. We know that market value is 90%. So we felt like we were making a good stride towards that based on what we had already recommended to the committee and to you, board, in that estimate of our budget. But again, if you feel like it is important to go ahead and take this recommendation and take it to what they recommended, that is the cost of that, and we wanted to have that as an option for you as well. So you're welcome to vote for that.
How many do we have that they arbitrarily just said?
Alicia, do you have that number of the ones that were just recommended at $500?
You're talking about 2 two, or are we talking about, you know, like there's 15 or 20? Because that makes a huge difference.
Sure, and I'm gonna have her look at that, because I know we discussed that, as well as the academic piece, in that many of our academic programs are in development. They may barely be fielding one team at this point. Obviously, we know that is something we're working on, and so we felt it was important to look at that and build that out. And as I work on that board goal with them, really defining what the expectations are for that particular stipend. When you're talking about, Mr. Frederick, maybe a department lead stipend at the elementary or something like that that's academic, that was also part of our discussion. For example, the previous principal had, 15, Laurel? Versus another campus that might have 2, right? So when we're looking at how is the work divided, if you've got 15 of those folks doing the work versus 2 or 5, what does that look like? So those were conversations we also had as far as what the compensation would be for those folks at that particular level. And making sure that we didn't have a broad stroke of this is a department coordinator, because that looks very differently depending on what that principal is asking those individuals to do, and defining that a little bit more specifically.
You had mentioned something about having stipends that were over the recommendation and that we were freezing those. How many of those do we have?
I can have Alicia comment to that if you'll come on up, Alicia. The other thing is we're also past the deadline for when you can tell people they're gonna make less.
Sure.
And so that was a big part of this year's decision, right? Going forward, we'll be able to have that conversation.
There were a total of 5 that they said that they did not survey for, so they just made them $500. Some of those comparatively, like she said, we did job descriptions. Those would put them in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. So when they're saying 500, it's really going to cut that person. So those do need to be hired to, have equity against the other jobs in those positions. I believe it was all of the junior high said that we were at or above for all junior high, so that didn't see any increase there. What was the other? I think it was volleyball was a little bit above, but this TASB person that we worked with, have emails back and forth where he's like, well, some ADs like to see this and some ADs like to see that, and we're like, but what is the market telling us? So volleyball was above, but however, I believe it was basketball was below. So then they said, if you're going to raise the basketball, then you need to raise the volleyball. So there are a lot of issues like that.
I appreciate that, Alicia. Just to try to understand the fluidity of the recommendation from TASB, this was not a hard, like when we had the conversation in regards to things like that, okay, you're telling us volleyball's too high, but if we raise basketball, we really need to raise volleyball. Right. The conversation went back and forth, and so it was like, well, we can put what you want to put down on the report. So that's also something to note as to why we made the decision that we did to stick with the recommendation of following the budget constraint that we'd already given on it, and then evaluating again going into next year to raise it.
Thank you, Alicia. Do you want to hear budget impact if we?
Yeah, I'm looking at it and I see the budget impact for this year, and I see the budget impact on the salaries for next year, but I don't see a budget impact proposed for next year.
No, I haven't built it in yet. Not on the, are you talking about the budget?
Yeah.
No, it's not built in yet, no. Because we will evaluate it when we get there and see what the market looks like, and see some of these are gonna be reevaluated based on what actually occurred with those new positions especially. And some of the ones that have been split, some principals may change some things as we move forward. So we will reevaluate where we stand on all
The
those.
other thing we're looking at with market is if surrounding districts are in deficit, they may be cutting programs or cutting stipends or not raising stipends. And so we're also being mindful of that as we look to the future of what our stipends look like. And knowing that much of what we heard in hiring folks this year was really about the base pay more than the stipend, which you previously addressed for. So those are all things we considered. But again, if the board chooses to take the full recommendation, we can build that into the budget.
I think where I'm okay with what we have is that we're creating a plan moving forward. We've created job descriptions, we've budgeted some money to help to start, and then we're gonna reevaluate. Instead of just throwing the whole 104,000 at it, we're making a plan to move forward and look at it we need to look at it every year no matter what, at least we should. So I see that as the benefit of doing it this way is that we already budgeted the money. Now we're gonna reevaluate, then we'll reevaluate again the next year. It could be, it could be 10,000 next year. It's just a matter of where we need to be.
Were they evaluated individually somewhat in recent years? Like, this is a global evaluation of all of them. When's the last time this was done? A long time ago, right?
Yes, I'm not sure how long ago it was.
So when I came 2 years ago and started compensation task force, that was part of the discussion, was looking at what is published in TASB's survey, right? And this is a difficult topic because to TASB's comment about we don't collect data on that, they ask for this data on common stipends, right? So anything that may be out of the ordinary, they won't collect data on. Again, you also have to rely on, did the district finish the survey and submit their things? Were they submitting accurate information? And so we have provided those types of things where you can pull that survey data and share with a group. Certainly having a stipend pull-out group in a compensation task force that just reviews that data and kind of pinpoints where they see issues, or if they are bringing back information like, hey, track is saying they're just way out of line. For example, our junior high girls coordinator and boys coordinator, if I'm remembering right, Alicia, 300, was it $300?
Yeah.
So $300, that's not worth getting out of bed for, guys, and we know that. And if they truly are, once we do the job description, if we know they are truly coordinating all of the competition events, they are truly running all of the hosted events here for junior high, and that goes back down to, did you follow the job description for us to go ahead and grant the stipend? Because it's not just, oh yes, you get the stipend regardless of whether you do the job or not. But if that was the case, $300 it's out of a recommended range. And so we do need to address that. And so if that's coming to the compensation task force, to your point, we're pulling that individually and saying, let's look around and ask what is our surrounding district paying for that position, and bringing that, whether we have a true TASB survey or not.
So the 50,000 has been discussed for a while, that was going to be a budgeted increase for stipends, correct?
Yes.
And then we got the report back from TASB, and the recommendation was 100,000 and change.
Yes.
I think my question is, when you look, and you're the only one that's been in the weeds of this, I mean, we have the report, but knowing feedback from employees, what I would like to know is, does the 50,000 get us most of the way to where you think, okay, we're happy with taking what we had originally talked about budgeting, what the report from TASB says, we can do it with 50, because if it's 60, not the full 100, we can also vote for that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It could be 73.
Yes, but I after we really looked at this and we really think that this is the right move forward, the step to not go too far, depending on what we see around us in the next year with other districts, and to be able to look at that next year when we get into it and see if and we're also, with the new job descriptions, making sure that they are accurate and that it is what is occurring, so that the principals, the athletic, that our AD, everybody is happy with what they're seeing, and whether or not we need to go farther, or is this far enough? So I think this is just a way to step into it and to do it gradually without having to jump in and say, well, yes, this is our market, but as you know, a 6A school is very different from a 4A in terms of what may be required of someone. So you need to factor that into as we look at, yes, they surround us, but if somebody comes to work for a 4H, if I'm the chief financial officer for Seguin ISD, I've got a different expectation than being the chief financial officer for Navarro ISD. It's two different things, and that has an impact on what that occurs. So we believe this is a reasonable step forward, moving people closer. I think they will be appreciative of it, and I think that they see that we are moving in the right direction, and that as we evaluate what's occurring, we will move forward again.
And individual assessments can be done during the school year. This is not limited to evaluating this once a year if something turns up to be really out of line.
Yes, but we would need to bring that back to you as a board to approve, because it would be a change to your overall budget if for whatever reason mid-year we went, oh, hey, Clint's stipend's off, we need to pay him $2,000 more. We would need to bring that back to you guys.
It would come back as another agenda item as a change in our stipends.
But it would be done once a year because it's kind of set as part of the salary. Because I believe we pay it out in April of each year. It's not incorporated into people's normal.
It depends on the
Yeah.
stipend.
It depends on the stipend. Some are paid over the whole year, some are paid out in April.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're discussing this because anything involving employee compensation is worth the time.
100%.
So,
Absolutely. And you are looking at additional stipends, because as we bring on new programs, whether it be esports, whether it's having an expectation that our junior high will be competing in one act play with the surrounding school districts, building out that program as well, you're looking at additional stipends, and so making sure that those are in there, as well as adjusting things that over time maybe are no longer specialty. For example, a webmaster in the past that was just updating, the website back when that required more coding type skills. Now you have programs that are a little bit more friendly to load things into a website for the campus, and so yes, there's still compensation for that, but it's not so specialized that that person is going to need extensive training, things like that. So we're constantly looking at that. And then I think, again, just the consistency of an actual job description, not, well, I thought all I had to do was this. It's actually saying this is what you are charged to do for this stipend. And making sure that does actually occur. It's not just an automatic payment.
Who's governing that? Is it the campus administration?
Depending on who is the person in charge of the group, yes. So it could be campus administration, it could be a district. For example, if we're looking at a particular stipend for CTE, the head of CTE monitoring that along with the campus principal to make sure that that's actually getting accomplished. When we're talking about some of the UAL academics, meeting with the UAL coordinator for the campus, I've talked through what is the standard. Is it that you are going to 3 practice meets before the actual meet? And that needs to be codified so that someone is not going to 12 meets and someone's not going to any practice meets, and they're both getting the same stipend, and really making sure that that minimum floor is met. And that is the challenge when you do a job description like this, is that you will have staff who say, well, I've met the minimum floor, so I don't have to go any further. That's all I'm going to do. And our hope is that, again, it is recognized as a thank you. You're doing everything you need to do to set up our kids for success in this activity or club or or competition. But, you know, certainly we wanna make sure that there is a baseline for what the requirement is for the stipend itself.
Any other questions or discussion?
The recommendation says to review it every other year, but what is y'all's actual plan?
We will review it next year.
Next
It will not be a formal review, it will be an internal review with the compensation committee.
Okay.
Well, knowing that this wasn't evaluated for a long time, although we're having conversations about whether or not this is the right decision, I think that, all the work that's been done is fantastic. I'm glad that we, got the outside review in addition to obviously all of the internal thoughtful conversation, the job description, so definitely going in the right direction, so it's fantastic.
All right, if there aren't any further questions or discussion, do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the stipend compensation plan as presented.
Second.
All right, the motion was made by Clint and second by Dan. Any other discussion? All those in favor? That motion's gonna carry 6-0. And we will move on to, thank you, Paul. We'll move on to action
Alicia.
item H, the endorsement of the Region 20 candidate for TASB Board of Directors.
Board members, you have the two candidates from the Region 20, as well as their biographies that were posted. So if you choose to endorse a particular candidate, the form is there, and this is your opportunity to decide on whether you will give an endorsement, but we have to have it submitted prior to your next board meeting. That's why it's on this agenda.
All right, is there any discussion about the gentleman?
Does anybody know?
Yeah.
Yeah, does anybody know? I don't know.
Personally, no, just the same things everyone else has read.
I do know the Bernie representative, Rich Cena. He has been on prior and is highly active. I see him at every SLI, every TASB, and he is very active. If you do click on the TASB resource, you can see the endorsements that each of the candidates have already received. If you want to dig deep enough in that, but you can also choose not to endorse anyone in particular.
What have we done in the past?
I don't think there was it was just one person last time, wasn't it? And we just went with
I think
the,
there's one, two people.
I
Yeah.
believe it was Rich last
yeah,
time.
I think it was two, and we just endorsed him because he was the only one. I don't think he had any competition. I don't remember there ever being, since I've been on the board, I don't remember there
It's
being.
kind of exciting that there's competition.
I mean, we can move to endorse a candidate, or we can not make an endorsement.
What's the process of these two candidates coming to us? Do they have to fight for they go against each other? Like, there are 4 other candidates, and either narrow down to 2, or these just the 2 guys that I wanna do it, and that's it?
Mm-hmm.
They're just
There's
the
not a
two
lot
guys.
of people signing up to.
Okay, yeah, I don't blame them.
That's a lot
Really,
of work.
Joel?
It's a lot of work. You're keeping up with your own board and the global board.
I don't feel like I have enough knowledge to endorse them.
Well, I'll move to approve the endorsement of Rich Cerna to fill the Region 20 position on the TASB Board of Directors at the income.
I'll second.
Okay, so the motion, to endorse Mr., is it Sena?
Sena.
Mr. Sena,
Mhm.
has been made by Dr. Gosh and second by Dan. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor of that endorsement? And that motion's gonna carry 6-0 also. I'm done with that. Okay, action item I, review and possible approval of student code of conduct for 2025-2026 school year.
All right, board, you did receive our draft of the student code of conduct. At this time of year, we do develop the student code of conduct that comes to us in a template from Walsh Gallegos. Hence, I brought to you those policies that had to be addressed in some way for us to fill in that template. And then we also fill out the handbook, which is provided by TASB. The handbook is not something that the board votes on, but the student code of conduct is. So as soon as handbook is in alignment with the student code of conduct that you approve tonight, we will share that with you just for review purposes. But we are bringing to you the student code of conduct if you have any questions, and then to ask for your approval. The summary of the changes from last year to this year was included to make it easier for you. We oftentimes have to look back as well because the language changes so much with the legislation. But you can see there where the changes were from last year. And then of course, without adding the addressing of the parental involvement policy related to disciplinary processes and then our new cell phone policy is what people are referring to it as, but HB 1481 is also in there. So any questions with that, and then we would be asking for a vote, so we can go ahead and add it into our registration, which goes online tomorrow.
So I know we did considerable work on this as a workshop a year ago.
We did.
Or so.
We did.
All of those pieces are still here, so it's just the updates to the legislation.
Yes.
And one of the pieces, and forgive me because I don't remember, I know one of the big pieces that we talked about was the actual application of first, second, third offense. I didn't see reference to that. Is that in different, is that in?
That would be in
regs
the
or where?
handbook.
That's in the handbook.
So it's in the
Okay.
reg that you have attached to that particular policy, but that goes into the handbook because that is something that is able to be adjusted, where the code of conduct has to come back to the board.
And were there any adjustments made to that, or is that all kind of stayed the same?
It's the same as far as the general discipline matrix, just the specifically
Other than
what.
the changes that you needed to make based on this?
Correct, yeah.
Any other questions or discussion about the code of conduct?
Do we need to, the motion says as presented, but we not doing the parental involvement piece. So how do we need to modify that motion?
It's
be
not
okay?
in the code of conduct that you have been presented.
Okay.
So if you accept it as presented, that's without the parental piece.
Okay.
It's as it exists currently. And then again, we'll bring it back as soon as TEA gives us guidance for you guys to choose whether you would like to adopt a policy or not.
If there isn't any further discussion, do I hear a motion?
I move to approve and adopt the updated 25-26 Navarro ISD Student Code of Conduct as presented, and recommend that the updated Student Code of Conduct be publicized on the district's website.
Second.
That motion was made by Joel, second by Clint. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That motion's gonna pass 6-0. And that ends our action items. We will go into our discussion and information session, beginning with item A, SB 13, Local School Library Advisory Council.
All right, this one is one we have a little bit of time, so we're able to discuss because it's not directly related to the code of conduct. But did want to give you a discussion time to talk through this. The board, again, may adopt a policy to start a local school library advisory council. This is a council of stakeholders. There's very specific numbers of folks that can be involved to review all purchases prior to them coming to the school board for approval that relate to purchases for the library. The policy, or the bill rather, Senate Bill 13, allows that you do not have to adopt one until either I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the percentage. Yes, 50 people or 10% of your, thank you guys. I just had a moment there. I was like, 50%, that's not right. 50 people or 10% of your district petition the school board to start one. That is some classic legislative numbers, because 10% of Houston ISD certainly is not 50 people. But if the school board was to be approached by 50 folks who signed a petition saying we would like to start this, I would certainly recommend to the school board that you go ahead, and you would have to anyway, but we would be listening to our constituents. But that would also mean that those 50 people would be ready to be on this committee. And since we struggle so much to find a SHAC committee, DEIC members to be a part of our committees, I feel like our processes are certainly going to be followed in place to review. All purchases of our library have to come to the board now anyway, regardless of whether they're under the $50,000 mark. And obviously, the intent of the law is to make sure that our students are exposed to age-appropriate materials and materials that are not going to be detrimental to them because they are subject matter that is not supported. So we have all of the rest of the bill that we will follow, and I've met with Ms. McMullen about her team and how we'll execute that with our librarians and our academic service team, how we will handle challenges to materials. As you may recall, we already brought that process to you last year when that legislation was shared about needing to have more solid processes for challenging material. At this point in time, in the 2 years that I have been here, there have been two concerns brought to me. They were both brought by board members. One who was contacted by a parent who had a elementary book brought home from the teacher's library that had inadvertently got into the circulation and was immediately pulled. And then another one from another board member who said, hey, we've had a challenge at our school, want to make sure that as I look into Destiny and what you have in your libraries, that you are checking this series. We did check that series. A particular book that was of concern was never purchased out of that series, but we were, again, put on alert about that series and reviewed that series as well. So, just want to give you kind of the lay of the land where we are. We are not recommending at this time that we start the committee, but certainly, board, if you feel like it's something that we just need to go ahead and do, we can add that, or we can wait for the petition and respond to our community as we would need to if they do receive enough signatures to start the committee.
Don't we already have a program in place where parents can sort of control when their kids can check out in the library in the first place?
That is correct, and in fact, the law does say that they are allowed to communicate to us with a list of books they do not want their children to have access to, and then we would mark those books, so that would be flagged when they go to check out, and they would not be allowed to check out that particular book. Also, we do have to publish all of the resources we have so that parents know what is available and what is online. So again, this doesn't change our compliance with the law as far as all the other processes in the library. It's just the decision on whether the board wants to go ahead and move to start the committee. And again, we're not making a decision tonight. You have time. This is just discussion. And again, allowing us to hear from the community. If we hear from the community prior to next month's meeting that yes, we need this committee and we will volunteer. Certainly in speaking with surrounding district superintendents, many have said to me, we're waiting on a petition because we have the same problem. We do not have folks who are eager to participate in a committee. But there are some others who have said, I've already received calls, I'm ready to join the committee, and in that case, they're going to go forward with it. So it's really, you know, again, the law says you have to if you get the petition, so, we're prepared to do that if that is the case. So just wanting to put that on your radar, have the conversation, and then gather any information, and then of course, as you hear from constituents, communicating that out to me, what you're hearing, so that we can prepare for next month's meeting.
And all of this would apply to the things that we, as a district, make accessible to our students. That doesn't apply to the things they can actually access on the phones that are supposed to be in their backpacks, right?
That is correct, and I would say, you know, I say this with a sad heart, but it is a true statement. You know that we are limited in areas where we can meet in this district that are large enough for meetings. I meet with our student advisory at least once a month in the high school library, and over the course of 2 years of meeting, you know, at least once a month in there, I have yet to see a child checking out a book at that level. So when we talk about access to materials that maybe we don't want our children looking at, I would say to parents, you know, be aware of how easy it is to access things on the phone or the device that you have given your child. We will do our due diligence to make sure our libraries are in compliance. What I've given you, board, is your alternatives in the policy. So you have, if you choose to adopt the School Library Advisory Council, that would be EFB local, and it's titled SLAC. If you chose to go the alternative route and wait for a petition, if a petition ever were to come, that's your alternative language. So you can see in both, you still have to follow the compliance laws of the library and the processes of review. And again, that any books we would be purchasing have to go through you, and you see the genre. We also have to let the parent know when they do check something out, this is what your child just checked out, this is the title, this is the author, and this is the genre. So a parent is able to know what their child is checking out from our resources. All classroom libraries last year were instructed to put their books in Destiny. Many of you are familiar, you either have family members or have friends that teach at the elementary level who choose to have a classroom library so kids can read as they finish assignments or as they finish as part of a rotation. And we enforced that those libraries also had to be put into the Destiny system so parents are aware of what's available. So anyone who has not done that, and you would be notified, that would be something we would have to speak with that teacher about. I know just in Texas in general, teachers have made that decision as to whether they take their classroom libraries home if they didn't want them to be cataloged within the system. And so it is something that I know they get nervous about, and certainly our librarians are nervous about, just wanting to make sure they are in compliance and that they are following all of the rules.
This is just a discussion item, so it's not anything we're taking action on, but is there any conversation or discussion that anyone wants to contribute to this before we close it? Okay, without any further discussion on item A, we're gonna go to item B, the budget update with compensation. And I do believe Mr. Newhoff is going to, yes, come speak to us again.
Welcome back.
I know y'all love hearing about numbers.
Oh, I do.
He has good news though, we like
Okay.
good news in budget.
I'm using the two different spreadsheets that are now out there to try to project revenue. They use different methodologies on some of their calculations, which is why some of them are very different. In fact, all the tax rates come out differently on both of those spreadsheets. When I plug in the same numbers, they come up with different tax rates that they're going to project we're going to be able to do. So that is why there are some differences in what you see. The numbers are still positive on using both spreadsheets out for the next few years. We are in a positive. I also tonight provided you an additional sheet that showed a lot of where the changes have occurred in the budget for next year, what the additions are. You'll notice there's a lot of changes on, I added a lot of money into utilities, I added a lot of money into property insurance for next year, and that's because the high school is gonna come, the new high school will come online, and we will be paying the utilities starting in January. So once we get those utilities, and we're gonna have to insure it, those are pure guesses based on what we have been paying and based on what we potentially will pay. So I'm hoping those numbers will be as accurate as I can get. But I tried to it's a good estimate, I think, but until we see those things start to come in, we will not know for sure.
When do we get the 600,000 for the new school? Is it 600?
And actually, that is one
That part
piece.
is an adjustment.
That is an adjustment. There, as I keep going forward, I will keep adjusting this. So we will still be positive next year, but it will not be with that extra 600,000. As I went through, I started doing the new instructional facilities allotment application, and it is prorated. So it will be prorated based on the number of days the kids are in that campus. So based on that, it's going to be a little less than $300,000 is what we're going to actually get. So that was bad news, but we're still on the positive side.
That comes when? Like when we open?
That will come, I'm getting ready to submit the application. Actually, I need to call them because I accidentally entered one item under the wrong name, and I needed to delete it, and every time I try to delete it, it tells me there's an error and to call the administrator. So I left a message with the administrator last week and haven't yet to hear back from them. So it is going to go in, and it should be included, if that's there, it'll be included inside of the summary of finance. They'll build it into those payments as we go forward. So it'll be allocated over the whole year. One of the other things that came in is our workers' compensation. We were on a 5-year fixed rate that went off last year. The last year was the 5th year of that, so the next year they are going to strictly a 1-year deal anymore, and it doubled. It went from 33,000 to 66,000. And we talked to as you'll see in the agenda item I provided for approval tonight, we did talk to another company, we did talk to TASB, who's doing our property insurance, and they came in a little higher, so we know that we're in a good ballpark, and we're not probably gonna get a better deal.
So that was gonna be my question, on the consent on the property and casualty, it's a pretty good number renewal wise. Does that renewal start now, right?
The renewal starts September 1.
So does that number include a prorated number for when we take over
No,
high school?
that they will, when we add that to it, they will come up with a number.
Okay, so is your projection on the budget?
My projection on the budget.
The prorated or the new total?
My projection on the budget is based on a prorated number for what will remain of the year, based on what they're charging us now, but it's also based on whatever I'm ballparking what I think the number is that will be the insured dollar amount versus what they may want.
So most likely in 26, 27.
It will be another big.
It'll be greater than that.
It'll be bigger than that, yes. So, but you'll notice on that worksheet that I gave you that shows where the differences is. A lot of it is in contracted services for some very specialized items that are occurring, but also for that, especially that utilities, and then on the other operating the property and casualty. So, but again, even though, and I will be bringing additional on the August meeting. We will finally have the certified values should come out by the end of this week, and I'm going to have to redo everything again based on those. So it'll be a lot of fun for me over the weekend. But I will get those done as quickly as possible so that we can take a look at those and see where we will stand based on those certified values. And I will continue to monitor especially with the property values, where we stand on the frozen values and where those adjustments come, because those have been a continuous source of issues as we have gone over this last couple of years. And it is, with the new increase in another homestead exemption, it will be a bigger issue this year.
Any other questions or comments about that?
I just have one. obviously been here quite a few years, and we always did 94% projected enrollment. What was the reason for the change? Just to be more conservative?
Well, no, okay. In the past, what they've done is what I did, okay, this is how I came up with what I did. I looked at where where our demographic study said we would be last year, and said this is where we ended up on ADA, which was around 93%. So I took, here's his projection for next year, so I'm gonna take 93%. And because remember, those kids come in over various times in there, so yes, we may hit that enrollment number where we did, but it's going to not be there at the first of the year. So it's more along the lines of that's my idea of an average,
Okay.
and try to take into account that average increase over the year that occurs versus that they're not all gonna be there that first day.
Okay.
But like I said, I looked at how he has come close to in the past, and 93% is pretty good, so, for where we came in versus where he was projecting.
Very good question though, because it highlights that projected peak isn't day one. And it can hit anywhere from December to February, and then reduce as we get, closer to summer. So, I think it is a conservative, especially since one of our goals is to increase student attendance. And so we've already met with, our campus staff, but, more money coming in from ADA, gives us more cushion, but I think it's a conservative approach that, puts us in a safe spot.
Anything else? Alright, thank you for putting that together. I know this was an ongoing discussion with us, so having that conversation and that information was good, thank you.
Anytime y'all have questions.
Thank you, Paul.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so, at this time, do we have anything we need to discuss in the reports with the superintendent's report? Okay, if there's nothing to discuss, we'll move to the consent agenda. Any discussion about any of the items on the consent agenda?
I have one point of clarification.
Which item?
Item number 9E, the resolution for the AgriLife. Evidently that's something we sign every year or something like that, right?
Yes, sir.
In there, they list, we had this discussion last month about extracurricular absences, and I know now with the unlimited deal, but we had said that Houston and San Angelo and all those other ones weren't extracurricular, but this resolution says that they are. So do you have to be a member of 4-H only, or is FFA excluded from getting that?
So what we had established is that we wanted to be very clear what is sponsored by Navarro's ag program that they're actually going to be present at and be able to support. So if you take your kid and your pig to San Angelo and we say we're supporting San Angelo, then we're gonna be there.
Sure.
We're gonna meet you, you're not gonna be on your own, we're gonna walk you through that. If we're not, if we're saying, yeah, 4-H, certainly sponsors that, and that's something that is a healthy thing for kids to do, but none of our teachers are required to be there. Now, Mr. Warndell may be there because he's bringing his son and he's just gonna be there because he's participating, but he's not there specifically to help you as your kid's teacher.
But if they are a member of Navarro 4-H, it is an extracurricular activity according to this resolution.
Correct,
Okay.
but that is why we're also adopting their adjunct staff that are responsible for
I
those
just-
kids there.
Yeah, I
No,
just
that's a
want-
great question.
But it's an excused absences. Correct.
It would be if that is specifically why they're attending and they're going there as that group, correct.
Okay. If they sign up for 4-H, because
Right, they would need to be a member.
Because, well, I mean, you can be a member, but if you register for San Angelo under
That's
Navarro
true, yeah.
FFA, even though you're a 4-H member, I mean, there's some
Here we are.
Right.
wonky area there, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of what we want clearer communication from our ag teachers on, so that that's going to the campus administration, so that we are very clear versus this is just our family business and they're going because I need them to be there. And that's not part of the school's requirement.
That's it.
Any other consent agenda items that warrant discussion? If not, then can I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion was made by Dr. Gosh and second by Clint. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Consent agenda passes 6-0. At this time, we're gonna go into closed session to discuss matters pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551072, to deliberate and discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, and discussion pursuant to Texas Government Code 551074, the employment and resignation of professional personnel to include teachers and other professionals. Any action related to those two topics will be taken in open session, and it is 7:54, and we are suspending open session. Okay, the time is 8:16 and we're gonna reconvene in open session. Are we in open?
Yes.
Okay. Do I hear any motions? Okay, there are no motions from closed session. So with that, the time is still 8:16 and our meeting is dismissed.